This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso and Samra Origins by the Weekend Coffee Collection.
Introducing Samra Origins. My collaboration with Nespresso is a connection to my roots, to my mother, Samra. Coffee that hits the right notes. It transports you. Crafted with unique notes and bold soaring flavors. Experience a taste that moves you. Nespresso and Samra Origins.
Discover more at Nespresso.com.
Hello everybody and welcome to 3D Printing Basics. I just wanted to let you know that if you're interested in getting every single episode a week before its release and ad-free, then please head over to my Patreon. The link will be in the show notes, and like I said, you can get every single episode ad-free and a week before its initial release date. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I hope you like this episode. Hello and welcome back to 3D Printing Basics. This is episode number 75, and in this week's episode we are going to be comparing regular PLA that we have all come to know and love and PLA Plus, the hot new filament that is sweeping the market. PLA Plus is often marketed as a better, tougher version of PLA while also having the same ease of use when it comes to printing and when it comes to availability. But is that really the case? Let's find out. So with that being said, let's get right into today's episode. Alright, so just in case you haven't watched my previous episode on breaking down PLA filament, let's do a quick rundown on what it is. PLA, or polylactic acid, is the most common 3D printing filament on the market. It is definitely known for its ease of use, how it is very, very forgiving as a 3D printing plastic. It's very available, it's very cost effective, and it's fantastic for beginners. It also comes in the most colors by far of any other brand of 3D printing filament. So the melting and printing range, you're going to want to be printing at anywhere from 190 to 230 on the nozzle, and that's in degrees Celsius with a 60-degree bed temperature. And PLA is really nice. Like I've said in the previous episode, it is super, super easy to work with. You pretty much can't mess it up unless you have some inherent printer issues, which definitely does happen. And it's honestly nice because you know if the PLA print fails, more oftentimes than not, it's going to be a problem with the printer rather than the filament itself. So it's definitely a nice kind of marker for if you have printer issues, you can definitely find out quickly by printing some PLA. Now, PLA Plus is definitely different, but it is not a standardized formula, quote unquote. Each manufacturer of PLA Plus uses their own kind of formula, and whether they are mixing it with something like impact modifiers, it could be other plastics like ABS and TPU, or something like carbon fibers. Each company has their own thing that they mix it with, but that's generally what PLA Plus is normal PLA mixed with some kind of additives that make it stronger and more temperature resistant. And those are the main goals of PLA Plus. On almost every single website that offers their own brand of PLA Plus, you will see their sort of marketing points are going to be more toughness, less brittleness, higher heat resistance, improved surface finish. They're basically just marketing it as PLA, but better in every way, shape, and form. And that normally means it is a little bit of a higher price point. You're typically going to find them to be 10 to 20% more expensive than your regular roll of PLA. And something to note, if you are using this, you need to print it a little bit hotter usually. Somewhere in between the 200 to 240 degree range definitely works, but the bed temperature is going to stay the same. So normally with this kind of specially modified filament, you're going to need to print it a little hotter, but the bed temperature can definitely stay the same. This episode is brought to you by PCBWay. Ready to take your electronics projects to the next level? PCBWay offers everything you need, from custom PCBs to 3D printing and even CNC machining, all under one roof. They're trusted by engineers and makers worldwide for their exceptional quality and fast turnaround. And here's a special deal for listeners of 3D Printing Basics. Use the promo code 3D Printing Squared, SQUARED, to get $10 off your first order. Start your next project with PCBWay and see the difference for yourself. Head over to PCBWay.com today. Let's talk about some of the key differences with PLA Plus compared to regular PLA. I've already mentioned the actual formula itself and how it's made, and that definitely helps with the strength and durability. The regular PLA is going to usually be strong, but it's definitely very brittle. It will snap under stress, and PLA Plus is often marketed as more impact resistant and better for functional parts like clips, brackets, things like that. And on the ease of printing side, they are generally the same. PLA, like I said, is known for being super forgiving. And so PLA Plus might be slightly trickier. It may string a little bit more, but if you bump up the temperature by 10 or 20 degrees Celsius, you'll often find that it has the same forgiveness and ease of use when it comes to printing as regular PLA. Now, for the finish and feel, PLA Plus is often marketed as having a smoother finish and deeper colors, but during my research and personal experience, I haven't always found that to be a case. Now, like I said, with each manufacturer having their own formula, it really comes down to which roll you're using and what you're going to get. So that's definitely something if you're looking into maybe using PLA Plus more regularly, maybe try out a couple different brands, compare and contrast what you find, and see which brand is going to be the best for your use case. But just because they're marketing that as having a smoother finish and deeper colors doesn't mean that's always going to be the case. And that's definitely something to take note of anytime that you're venturing into a new product space. Now, I think the biggest marketing point for PLA Plus is its heat resistance. As we know, PLA is super soft and it has a super low melting point, so much so that if you leave it in a hot car, especially where I live in Southern California, it will not last long. Your part will start to melt in about 10 minutes or so, and it'll start to warp and deform, and it will essentially ruin your print if you leave it outside or in a very hot environment. So the softening point is about 60 degrees Celsius, and in my opinion, I don't know the conversion off the top of my head, but in about 80 degrees or so outside, you really can't leave it outside for more than 5 minutes at a time. And so that's definitely something that PLA Plus has tried to address. They often market it as being much more heat resistant, being able to be outside, be in a hot car, maybe have a softening temperature of 80, 90, 100 degrees Celsius. But it's definitely not close to the ABS or ASA melting temperatures. So if you're looking for something that is extremely heat resistant, then you're still going to want to go with ABS or ASA or the usual suspects there. So those are the key differences, and overall for practical use cases, I would say that PLA and PLA Plus have pretty similar use cases. The only real functioning point that I would say that's different from PLA Plus to PLA is, like I said, the temperature melting difference, or what temperature it softens at. So the only use case that I think you could use the PLA Plus for versus not using regular PLA is if you're going to be having something that's outside or maybe in a car and it isn't going to get outrageously hot in there. Maybe you live in a climate that isn't super hot, but it's still a point where you don't want to take the risk. That's where PLA Plus can definitely come in, because you have that ease of use while also having that nice temperature difference that could definitely help your prints not melt and not soften up when they're being used outside. I definitely wanted to talk about some common misconceptions that come with PLA Plus, because there's definitely a lot of them. PLA Plus, like I've said before in this episode, I'll say it again, it's often marketed as this kind of end-all be-all perfect filament to use. You get all the benefits of PLA while having none of the negatives, which just isn't true. It really depends on the application that you're trying to use it for. It really depends, especially if you're going outside. My advice would just be don't even bother. There's so many better filaments out there that are proven to work well outside, like PETG, ABS, ASA, TPU, and they're the same price. They're PETG is the same price as PLA. You just don't need to be trying out this PLA Plus, something that isn't proven to last outside and something that is so different from brand to brand. Just get some PETG and it's going to work outside just fine and do exactly what you want it to do. And that comes to the next common misconception, and that PLA Plus is going to be the same all the way around. Like I said earlier in the episode, it's not a universal formula. Different brands use different formulas, and that contributes to the inconsistencies that are found in PLA Plus. So if you are really set on using this filament here, get a couple different brands, print some test pieces, compare and contrast, and kind of find which brand and which formula works best for you. And both of those definitely kind of group into the last one, in that PLA Plus can replace ABS. It absolutely cannot replace ABS or ASA. It doesn't have the impact resistance. It definitely doesn't have the temperature resistance. It is easier to print, but that's why ABS is going to turn out better. It's harder to print because it has more resistant properties that are going to work better in a high impact or high temperature area. So that is definitely something to consider, especially if you are printing parts for industrial purposes. Definitely consider what you're going to be using them for, because PLA Plus oftentimes won't just be your end-all be-all answer to everything. And with that being said, that's all I have for you guys today. I hope you guys have been able to learn a little something about PLA Plus, learn the main differences between PLA Plus and normal PLA, see the differences there, and see why it may not be the end-all be-all solution to everything that it is being marketed as. I wanted to take a second and say thank you guys so much for listening. If you have any questions, I always link a form down in the show notes of every episode. Please feel free to fill it out. I will take a look at it, and I will either respond directly or include it in a podcast episode. So thank you guys so much for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.